Have you ever felt stuck in your learning journey, either overwhelmed by the challenge or bored because it's all too easy? We often overlook that the first challenge is finding the right challenge. That is the sweet spot of learning, where the difficulty, the focus, the motivation, and the support all line up to help us really learn. And the sweet spot comes at the intersection of educational theory, where it can help you to leverage your learning and take you further in what you can do. The first step is to establish what your capacity is. That's the skills and the knowledge that you have now. And then you can start to look at your potential, that future potential of what you can do with an applied learning process. Now, not everything is going to be available to you immediately. Think of it as stepping stones. You need to find the right pathway to get to where you want to. If the challenge is too hard immediately, it can be off-putting and mean that you don't make that progress. If it's too easy, you're not actually even stepping onto the water. You're simply standing by the edge, waiting to make that first move. So to find the sweet spot, we're going to explore 3 educational theories. The first of which is John Sweller's cognitive load theory, the one where we consider our mind like a computer with a limited working memory. We need to be able to affect that memory without overloading it. This is where we can break it down into 3 components. The first of which is intrinsic load. This is the inherent difficulty of the material itself. If it is too challenging, we're not able to take it on, and it overwhelms our working memory and our ability to make progress. Second is the extraneous load. This is when we receive too many instructions at once, or potentially have distractions in our environment that prevent us from making that progress that we need to. And finally, we come to the germane load, that first sweet spot. This is where we have the right balance in the challenge of the material, but also in terms of our focus and where our attention is. By meeting these criteria, we're able to make the required progress and don't get distracted or overwhelmed by the information at hand. Our second educational theory is Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. And this is where, again, we come across 3 different ideas that are integrated into this. The first zone is the one where you have the ability, you can actually do all of the learning, and it's probably not going to be a lot of challenge for you. We then move to an outside ring, and this is where no matter what, you are unable to do this. It's outside of your reach. Just like that potential that we discussed earlier is that stepping stone on the other side of the river. Then we come to the zone of proximal development, another sweet spot. This is where with the right guidance and support and the help of a MKO, a more knowledgeable other, we are able to make the progress that we need through a scaffolded approach that as we move through it, we become more independent and develop our autonomy in this process. And the third educational theory comes from Ericssons' research into deliberate practice, where we have specific goals, focused attention, and the ability to gain targeted feedback that is going to allow us to progress. We develop mental representations where we understand what success looks like, what the outcomes are that we're striving towards, and most of all, we repeat and we refine as we move through. The true power in these theories lies in how they intersect. By themselves, they are good. When combined, they produce something special, something that is going to allow you to take your learning further and really hit that sweet spot with the right focus, the right challenge, and the right practice. Cognitive load theory and the zone of proximal development overlap, where germane loading provides the right level of challenge by removing distractions and overload. This perfectly aligns with zone of proximal development, which recognizes that the right level of challenge provides the greatest learning experience. The benefit is clear. By cutting out the noise, that extraneous load, and focusing on the appropriate difficulty, you enter the zone of proximal development more efficiently and avoid getting frustrated or bored. The link between the zone of proximal development and deliberate practice. Both theories highlight the crucial role of others in your own learning. The social nature and interactions provide feedback and insights that allow learning to progress. Think of it this way, your zone of proximal development is the learning zone, and the deliberate practice is the structured activity that you do within that zone, guided by a mentor, or to borrow the term, MKO. The benefit is you get targeted feedback that moves you forward and a scaffolded approach that builds lasting skills. And finally, the connection between deliberate practice and cognitive load theory. Deliberate practice shows us how achieving the right level of focus and attention produces results. The benefit here is that the domain load helps you to create the ideal environment for deliberate practice by minimizing distractions or moving too far beyond your current ability. The focus and attention to the practice is key. And within all of these, we will also talk about the role of motivation. We will know that if we are motivated to do something, we're more likely to achieve it. So if something is too easy and we don't have that level of challenge, then that becomes a factor. But also when things are too hard, you're going to find that it's going to be a struggle to get into it. That is why with each of these, finding that sweet spot is key, because then the motivation will become intrinsic. You will recognize the progress that you make and you'll recognize the results that you get. So the next question becomes, how do I put this into practice? And that's where I've developed a checklist that you can use to help you identify the areas where you can really reach that sweet spot. The first step in this process is to assess your capability. What is it that you can do now? It's easy to either overstate or understate your current capabilities, which is why it's essential to have an appropriate reference for this. For example, if you're learning a new language, your current capability might be knowing basic greetings and a few common phrases. Next, define your goal. What is a specific, clear goal that you would like to achieve? Whilst broader goals are fine, learning benefits more from being specific in this process. By refining your goals so you can clearly see if you've met the criteria, you can easily track your progress. For example, instead of, I want to be a better coder, a more specific goal would be, I want to build a simple calculator app using Python within the next month. Next, you need to gauge the challenge. Is it too easy or too hard? Or in that right place. If you've ever read a book where you have to keep going over each paragraph trying to interpret the meaning, then this applies to you. Your motivation will often give you a good insight into whether a task is appropriately challenging. For instance, if you're learning to play guitar, practicing a basic chord progression is an appropriate challenge, whereas trying to learn a complex solo from a famous guitarist on day one would be too hard. Next comes minimizing distractions. That is where you want to avoid that information overload through not doing too much at once and eliminating any of the distractions that might be around you. One of the simplest ways of doing this is a Pomodoro technique. That is, you set a timer for 25 minutes knowing that you're going to have a 5-minute break afterwards. By having that defined period of time, it actually helps your brain to focus in on what you're doing, knowing that there is an endpoint. Within that, distractions are easier to put aside. Your focus on one particular thing is heightened through this process, and I strongly recommend trying it, particularly if you haven't done it before. And lastly, find a guide. Who can you go to that's going to provide you with that assistance, with that guidance, with that scaffolding that will allow you to make progress? That MKO, that more knowledgeable other who can provide you with the experience and the expertise that is going to refine the process that you take, refine the pathway, and make sure that you're stepping onto the correct first stone as you skip across that river. It can be easy to rely on AI in this instance, but one of the things that we really want to highlight is the role of the social interactions that really guide learning, particularly the ability for you to talk, to hear what you are saying, and to receive the feedback of those around you. And so, remember that the sweet spot isn't something you just magically stumble onto. It's about the right challenge, the right focus, and the right practice. When all of these things intersect, you will take your learning to the next level. You'll create efficiencies in what you do, and you'll be effective in making the progress that you want to. Try it out. You'll find that it'll make a big difference in what comes next.